I'm at one of those awkward points where I've got a few repairs and bits and pieces on the go, but I'm waiting for parts to turn up or tools to turn up, and there's nothing I can really do on existing things. So I thought I'd drag something out that has been waiting in the wings for a bit. I don't know how far I'll get with this today, but I want to have a look inside it. It's just something that's been nagging me a little bit to work on. This is a Sanyo M7950 stereo boombox from about 1983. I picked this up months and months ago. It's a model I've always sort of fancied, and it did actually come with the original sticker on the front of the tape door there, that I peeled off, and I think it's been on there all this time because it's left a little bit of a mark you can probably see behind. Now, before you go running for the pitchforks, I did actually I took this tape door off when I first got this, because it just pulls off, and I think it pulls off, if I remember right. That's right, I grabbed it from the front. So it does just slide out, and I actually put it on the flatbed scanner with the label on there, and made a copy and recreated this from some existing graphics that I could find, match the fonts and everything. So I may have a new sticker made, and I'll make the files available to replace that if it looks better than that ugly mark underneath. After doing that, I found out that somebody in Russia has already done it, but at least I've got my own design. Anyway, yeah, this is pretty filthy. I can't get it to work on mains. It uses an unusual square or rectangular sort of connector. I might have a lead for that somewhere, but it's also got a 9-volt adapter, and I've got one of those to hand. If I put 9 volts into it, it only seems to work out with one speaker. The left is a little bit of crackle, but only the right speaker seems to function properly. The soft touch tape mechanism, the buttons do stick in, but it's doing absolutely nothing. I can't hear a motor going. There's absolutely no sign of life of that at all. The counter doesn't appear to move, so I think the belts are probably gone. I have a sneaking suspicion, although I bought this on eBay, it came from a car boot sale, because when it arrived it had a blade of grass stuck to the back, so somebody's probably made a massive markup on what they sold it me for. But yeah, that's just the way it goes, isn't it? One quite interesting thing, I don't know how well this will come across in the right light, I always thought these grills were black. They're not. They're actually a very dark blue, and I think once it's been washed up and cleaned up and everything, then I think that'll show better. There's bits of blue trim like inside the tape deck and stuff like that. Got the blue behind the tuner dial there. So yeah, it's a really nice little design. It was sold in Japan as the V9, and there's a red one, like a dark red metallic one in Japan that's quite nice looking. In Japan it's got Dolby on the tape deck. In the European model it doesn't, because the Dolby button's there. On the European model we've got fine tuning. We've also got a voltage selector on the side of this one, so with that square connector, makes me wonder if this might have been European. I've got 2 replacement antennas. I've already been playing about with that. I don't remember if they were both missing or if it had one and it was broken. I can't remember when I first got it several months back. But yeah, it was just bugging me to get on with that tape door and order the antennas and stuff for it. So I want to go in this and see what's going on. Now, I believe with the tape mechanism, just to spin it back around a minute, because it's got this soft touch control, which I think is a sort of similar to the Philips servo control, where I think it starts a motor that pulls a cam around that activates the head block and the function that you want. Each of these buttons, apart from record, has got a leaf switch underneath that when you press it will activate the motor to activate the mechanics, and it could be that is our issue. They might have some corrosion on. I can't remember if I'd looked in the battery compartment, but no, it's actually quite a small battery compartment. It's only in this bit. I don't think it doesn't actually go down there, so apart from some muck in there, it doesn't look like it's had a leak. It's got a beat cut switch on the back. It's a little bit faded, I can see on the back, so it's been in the sun a little bit. I mean, it is 41 years old. There's a splash of something on the back there, I'm not sure what that is. So let's open this up. I've got a service manual for it, as usual, and very nice that they've marked each of the screws with a little arrow, because these two will be for the antennas, so we don't need to take those off. So let's just see what we've got. So it looks like we've got some short screws along the top that are black, and then the other screws, these long ones, they look different. They're a kind of gunmetal-y colour. There's also one there with an arrow between the line in and line out connectors. So I don't think we've got a DIN connector on this one. It's all on proper phono jacks, so this is probably going to be another short one. Yep. Wow, that put up a fight. Alright, that's interesting. A little foam protector there of the ferrite rod antenna, which is close to perishing, but not too bad. So we've got a couple of connectors there for the rod antenna. Don't think it's too important which way around they go. And yeah, that's it inside. Plenty of dust, but no corrosion or battery spills or anything particularly awful. I can see a snapped belt. I think there are 3 belts in this, and I don't have a source of belts to hand. You're not really dry, but it's just snapped. So yeah, I believe there are 3 belts in this mechanism. That looks like it was the main drive belt, because the motor is there. The motor's free to run, so it's not seized. Got a few connectors around the boards here. So this would be the radio tuner board. Connections probably from the tape heads and the mics. Connections to the radio tuner. A couple of connectors on the top board there. It's got that old electronics smell, which is really cool. Yeah, I'm pleased at how tidy that is inside. Apart from the dust, I don't see any sort of corrosion or anything just yet. So it looks like these switches are linkages to switches down here on the board, and pots are standard sort of pots at the top, centre detent on the balance control. Bass and treble controls don't have centre detents, but that's okay, so we could get to those fairly easily for cleaning. Oh, got date on the motor, 12/2/57. That is Japanese Showa year. What year is 57? No, 1982. Is that 1982? It's a little bit earlier then than I thought. I thought it was about 83. That's cool. I mean, that could just be the motor, of course, but at least that's a date. I thought this chip was really weird looking, then I realised it's actually got a shield over the top of it. These are going to want doing properly, but just for a real quick and dirty. No, that's not brought that side back, so band switch is really mucky as well. Now weirdly, if I put that to expanded stereo, I hear the noise. Something's happening there, definitely. So maybe that's post balance control. You can actually see 2 leaf switches down at the bottom here. The rewind switch is definitely pressing that one. fast forward switch is definitely pressing that one, so that's at least those two. Again, let's put the power in. Now neither of those are making the motor spin, so we've got 3 screws on our amp board. So there are some tightly nested wiring looms. There probably are some points of wiring that might have to be desoldered. So since we've got this, goes under like that. These at the sides. But I just want to have a look underneath. What the heck? There's a bus ticket inside it. I can't decipher that. July, does that say July 81? Well, that can't, no, that can't be right, can it? Someone make sense of that for me. When is that from? Send your parcels by bus. How's that jammed right inside there? That's bizarre. Right, so there's a wiring clip here, and there's a few of these little yellow wiring ties. Along this edge here there are more of these yellow ties that seem to tie this brown and blue wire. So just make a note of where these go. There's a black wire top of this trace, there's a red wire, this trace here, grey wire at this point, a brown wire at this big point here. Alright, a couple of days have passed while I've been really busy with other things, but in that time I've been printing out a few pages of the diagrams and familiarising myself with some of this a little bit. Now, the same as I did with that Hitachi that I've just done, I want to solve this problem with a missing left channel before I go into the tape deck. Now, of course, on that Hitachi, the tape deck worked, so I was able to use a left-right test tape. On this one, of course, it doesn't, so I'm using the line input, and I'm just running this off the wave editor on the laptop here to feed in my left-right test tone to see where this missing left channel's got to. Now, quite conveniently, a couple of the points we want to look at around the line amplifier, because the line inputs come straight into a muting transistor and then into the function switches and then straight into the line amplifier, which on this one is just one transistor. So we've got a little just feedback circuit there around that transistor, and then from there they go on to the balance, treble, bass and volume controls, and all of those controls of course are on this top board. So I've found the fault, I think, really quickly on this. It's not on the main board, it's not a capacitor or anything like that, I don't believe. Just looking at the top board, we were interested in finding a couple of resistors on here just coming out of the line amp transistor, and we've got, if we can find it, it's just before the balance control, so R147, which is the left, and 247, which is the right. Conveniently, those are on the top board here, right here. And if I've got my audio probe on and I ground it,
left, left, left.
Our left channel is making it through to that board just fine.
Right, right.
And there's a right. So they're on that board, they're working fine. And that resistor goes straight into the balance control, and I think this is where we've got the problem. So if I can manage just to jam this probe right in the side pin here of the pot.
Left, left.
You see it's going into the pot,
left.
But if I try and take that from the other side where it should come out, which is really not easy because one, this leads in the way, and two, it's buried further down.
right, right,
I only get the right channel
right, 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 right,
on both sides.
right, 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 right.
But I never get that left channel coming back. So I think we've got either a bad track or a bad wiper on this pot. I think that's our issue. So it's broken in this pot, and then of course it's not making its way to the bass, treble and volume controls, then doesn't make its way back to the amp chip there, and that's why it's not coming out. So just out of shot here, I've just taken a screw out of the chassis, so I'm going to pull this whole chassis anyway. I'm going to of course desolder these wires again, and when I sprayed these controls with the cleaner earlier, it was just a quick test to see if it would make any difference, but they all feel terrible. So I think they're all going to have to be desoldered and stripped and serviced properly.
Right, right.
The actual volume control is actually not too bad, but the balance control and the bass and treble just feel dreadful. So they're going to get stripped and serviced anyway, and hopefully we might be able to see what the problem is there. But yeah, I wanted to do this just while it was still in the chassis, so I could probe around the board and everything before I start desoldering everything. So I think that's going to be the next thing. Remove these again, pull the chassis out of the board, out of the case, sorry, and take all these knobs and everything off the top before I do that, then take the chassis out. We'll just start doing some cleaning, because obviously it's gross inside, and then undo this board. I think there's a connector here, a couple of screws, I think it's 1, 2, 3 I can see, I think, that will remove this board from the top of the chassis. Then we can get to the bottom of this and desolder the pots, take them apart and sort them out. So I think I need to get all these controls off, and I'm a little bit wary of, oh, that one's alright, I'm a little bit wary of pulling them by these sides, because I do wonder if that's likely to break them. I'm just going to kind of very gently rock them. Yeah, they're coming. That's okay. I wondered if I might have to push them from the inside. I think actually that balance pot, I might have to do that. Ooh, there's a clump of dust under there. Yeah, I think that balance pot. Yep. Just because there's not really anything to grab hold of there. That's better. So it's that, and probably similar for a tuning knob. If you give them a little push from the inside, that's most of it. There's a screw here I mentioned earlier that I removed. It had a bit of a red top on it. In fact, it's sort of red coated, that screw, so you can identify it's a little bit longer than the other screws. So I believe eject the tape door, I think. Should now be able to loosen this chassis. I think I'd have to desolder the wires there as well. Let's just see if it will come out. This tie here, got to remove that. Let's see what I'm doing wrong. So there are some connectors here. A 3, 4, that's those. There we go. There's also a soldered wire. So the red and white wires, you can see one goes there, so there's a long track, that's probably a ground track, and just above it there's a white wire. The top of one of the switches here next to this green through hole, there's a red wire. Okay, according to the service manual, I haven't removed enough of these connectors. I think I've got to remove all 4 of these. That goes right along there. I think we should be able to remove it from there. Oh, we've got this piece of tape here as well. I don't know if I mentioned that. again, probably original packing tape or something. There's all glue. I don't get why that's there. All right, and a bit of paper at the back that I think acts there as an insulator. Yeah, there's our speaker wires that we desoldered. Some small wires there, probably for the mics, possibly, or no, I think the brown and the blue are for the mics. They're on a connector. What are they for then? Red and white, where do they go? Oh, they go into the AMS board, so that's the track selector board. Okay, well, we got it there. Put up a fight though. All right, so I can see a counterbelt down there that, yeah, sloppy as anything, so that's obviously gone. So it recommends that you remove the switchboard, and then excuse me, you can remove the tape chassis. I see at least four big screws there actually. You pull that out this way. Got to be careful with this tuner dial because that's already got knocked a little bit already. That should, there's little clips that should hold that in. That's better. So I think actually I'm going to take this switchboard off, which has got 3 screws. I'm going to take this off and have a look at these pots first. There's a connector in the middle. Come out. So one of the first things I'm noticing is there's a solder joint there. Is that structural? I'm not sure, it might be, but that solder joint's awful. No, it's off a capacitor, I think. Yeah, some of the solder joints on this don't look great. So that will want sorting out when they get soldered back in. And then there's a shield on the top with these black screws. There's one bigger screw and then 3 smaller screws. And then the shielding. Oh, it's soldered. Okay, there's a little bit of solder. Well, that's okay. If it lets us get to those. Well, I can just desolder it, can't I? Little tag, I will do that. So the one we were having trouble with was this one at the top of the balance pot. You can see they're absolutely caked with muck. Okay, so if I move that on one side, you can see it's working. But if I try this the other way around, can you get anything? No, nothing. Open, look. Try from the other tag. Nope. Dead on one side, so I prefer the way of doing it. Get under with the cutters. So we're going to lift the tabs. I like to do it with the cutters. Don't actually cut it, they're just sharp and flat enough that they'll be able to get under there to lift it, and then sometimes you have to take another pair of pliers and just flatten them out like that, and then the whole assembly comes apart. So can you see there are 2 larger wipers in the middle and then some smaller ones at the edges? And look at that one on the right. See, it's bent down, so it's likely not making contact. And on the actual strip there, the metal center contact, the rail, is the fully conductive, the metal contact, and then the 2 carbon contacts on the edge are where you get the resistance from. So the little wipers make the connection from the conductive track in the middle to the resistive track at the sides. So one of those was not touching the metal rail. They're also, of course, as I mentioned, gross. There's loads of muck and stuff in there, so that all needs cleaning. The wipers need cleaning. There's that crap at the bottom of the pot there that needs to come out. I think I'll clean the whole thing, and then it will get fresh grease. And this should come out as well. Yep. So take the whole thing out. Yeah. Clean the whole thing. It's got a little copper got a little copper spring there as well. I think that's just like a pressure spring. So you can see a little sort of track that rides in. But yeah, I'm going to clean the whole thing. I'm going to do this for all of them. And interestingly, that wiper on the right, the one that's faulty, I realise it should have, like the left one, a little bit of the plastic that's sort of moulded over, sort of heat staked in to hold it in, and I'm noticing it's loose. So it may be that it's moved around a bit, and that's probably what's flattened it down. Because now I've sort of positioned it back in, they look about equal. So yeah, I think it might need a little bit of glue, if that will work. Yeah, it's just come straight out now. Looks, it's loose. That's the issue. So after cleaning with alcohol, you can actually see that it's actually a custom pot for a balance control, because there's only a part of it on each channel, of course on opposite sides, that is actually resistive, and the rest of it is just the metal conductive track. So when the slider goes all the way to that side, there's no difference in resistance, so it gives it a curve rather than being a linear, because these are probably audio taper as well, so rather than giving it a linear resistance change from one end to the other, which you don't want, right in the middle, you can see they don't quite meet in the middle, so there's a spot in the middle where they're equally conductive, and then as you move it across, one side will start to increase in resistance, and then you get very high resistance at one side, and then same at the opposite side. So yeah, it wasn't all black carbon, but well, I suppose it was. I suppose it had been smeared all over the thing, but yeah, the cotton bud kind of tells the tale. As always, be really careful with these. Don't go scrubbing away at them, and don't use anything harsher than isopropanol, because the carbon track is really easy to destroy, as we say, because this is obviously a specific part for a balance control. It's going to be hard to replace, so that will get treated with the tiniest amount of the fader lube that I use before it all gets reassembled. But we need to move on now and see if we can sort out this little wiper, so that all needs cleaning too. Move over Pharrell Williams. I'm going to explain what get lucky really means. See this tiny ball bearing here? I should have thought about this. I kind of just launched into this. Remember I mentioned the balance pot as a centre detent? So this little slot in the side of the shell, that little ball bearing sits in a little pocket with a spring behind it in the side of this. And it only dawned on me when I saw the spring, the little hole. I thought, there should have been a ball bearing in that, and that probably came flying out. I probably caught it on the footage when I took this pot apart. So I just dug through the pile in this bath mat that I used to stop it getting scratched, and found a little ball bearing. The number of times I've taken a control apart with a little ball bearing in and promptly lost it. When I used to have my bench in the kitchen, one went launching itself straight under the fridge once, and it was never ever found. So I'm going to put that in number 5 in my little ice cube tray, and I'm going to actually put it with the bottom of the pot as well. And I'm going to take the top of the pot and go and wash that out, because there's all crap in the corners. This has been glued. I just put a tiny bit of super glue. There's a little leg on the thing actually that sort of hooks down into a tiny little slot in the side, just to sort of home it into position. It's possible that there would have been a little heat staked piece like that other one, like I mentioned, over the top of it, and it might have broken, it might have cracked off, which is probably why the wiper has just flopped over. I've attempted to glue these before and failed on rotary pots, so I don't know that this is going to fix it. In all honesty, if this glue doesn't hold and the balance pot is irreparable, I'm just gonna bridge it out with a wire. I'm not going to worry about it. But if this works, that would be cool. It's not like I'm going to desperately need the balance pot, to be fair. But you know, if we can make it work, we make it work. So I think these on the chassis, these silver switches just pull off the top. Yes, so they all need to go in the ultrasonic cleaner because they're horrible. The ones at the sides are in the group of 3, I think, are shorter. The one that's just out of shot on the band switch has a longer sort of wing on it, so you'll be able to tell those apart. And then again, just out of shot, there's the fine tuning, which I think will just pull up. Yeah, it does actually, I can feel it coming. I was thinking if it puts up resistance, I will leave it in place, but now it's coming. Yep. So I think that is all of the chrome switches, apart from, of course, ones on the front of the cabinet, which are all sort of retained in. But this is all the removable bits that we'll put through the ultrasonic cleaner as usual. All the little boards have been cleaned. I've just got to make sure there's no fluff or lint on those from the cotton swabs that I've used to clean them. So they've all come up really nicely. What I've got to do now is get a little bit of this fader lube on there, and I've only got a little bit left, so it's just as well. And then get the lithium grease inside the shells, which have also been cleaned, and get them reassembled. This little one that's in the clamp there is the one that I've glued, and it appears to have taken okay, so hopefully when we get that back together it's going to be alright. And then the other ones, like this one out of the volume control, they've all been sort of stripped and they've gone through the ultrasonic cleaner, so they're going to be re-greased. Just out of shot, just at the edge here, all the controls that were pulled off have been through the ultrasonic cleaner as well. That's got the bulk of the muck off. They just want to polish. They've come really nicely. The chassis had a dust out outside, but it just wants a little bit more work. The front and back have had a clean, but the again front needs a bit more work, because I want to take the speakers out of that and get a little further into that in due course. But let's have a look at this for now. So I think what I'm going to do is take one of these lint-free swabs. I'm going to put some of this fader lube on one of these, because I've got to do all of them. I'm just going to give these a bit of a coat of that. Just the insides of these a coat with it. Be careful not to get the lithium grease on the contacts. And the spring should ride on that side. Yeah, that feels alright. Alright, the balance pot test. Now my clips are a bit crappy here. I need to replace these really, but this is one side. That seems to work. So if we reverse the clips, so that's going to go to that side. That's going to go to there. Oh, that looks good. Yep, hopefully that holds up. It looks like we've got continuity both ways. There it goes, there's that broken clip. So yeah, looks like we've solved the problem. It doesn't feel brilliant, but I think it's going to be, it's never really going to be used as long as it makes continuity in the middle. I think it's alright. I mean, they're better than they felt when I started with this, and obviously much cleaner. These have come out well. Yeah, they feel pretty good, and the volume control feels really nice. So yeah, I think we're all good with those. We'll get them soldered in. and then test it in the chassis. Okay, one quick last check while it's in the board. So on this side we've got 14.7K there, and about 2.4 ohms there, and then just to swap that around, 14.1K on that side and about 2.2 ohms on that side. Yeah, so happy with that balance control. Put that aside and move on. So next thing I want to do is get this tape transport out, and if I haven't mentioned already, the service manual on this is amazing. There's your full guide and order here to do the disassembly and to take this chassis out and this tape deck out. So I've now got a pile of tools behind me. So there's a little spring here that's the reset spring for the reset button on the counter. So we've got to remove that, and there's a little board down here with a couple of switches on. I think that's record, mute and battery check, that it recommends undoing this connector because this wire is a bit tight, and removing this board. Now note that there is a strap there. Don't think that's quite drawn on the diagram. There's a little retainer strap for the wiring that actually I've got to remove that screw anyway, so that retainer strap will come with it. So that sits on the right, actually. Yeah, it points with a little arrow, so that board lifts out the way. Then we've got the one here with the spring. And then we've got one down here. Oh, now then, that's quite a bit longer. So let's pop that in number 6. So these are probably going to be the same. Yeah, they're massive. Okay. This one. And this one at the top of the motor, just under the tuner dial. The one under the tuner dial is another short one, and it says to note positions of wiring. So again, I can see a couple of bits. There is another retainer just hiding down here under the eject gear that's got this black wire for the erase head. I think I can unfold that. Make sure that's just loose enough to turn the deck sideways, hopefully. Right, there's a lot of wiring going on down there. There's quite a big belt there that will want to come out. There's a lot of muck down there. Doesn't look like any belts have sort of melted or anything particularly. Again, I mentioned this counter belt earlier. It's not massively perished. They've probably dried out a little bit, if anything, but not melted or sort of particularly dried out. That I can see moving, that big gear, will be for the cam mechanism, I would think, that would control the functions at the play, stop, fast forward, rewind, for lifting the head block and what have you. Okay, so again, there's a cable retainer here at the top, a cable retainer there which is just flat, a couple of hooks I can see. The cables are put around, so I think to get to the capstan, looks like this plate will come off to get to the flywheel, to get the motor belt in, and there's a post here that, yeah, all this would have to come out so we can get the belt around the motor and flywheel and get to this one as well. So we've two on the back. I'm trying to get my fat head out of the way. Two on the back and the counter belt. I think that is it. Got the solenoid there for the AMSS. I can see a couple of leaf switches down the bottom here as well. That one has got a wire retainer. Is this one on top maybe? Oh, I see. That's cheeky. Hidden right under here. There's one that's hiding under this wire. So there's two little screws here. Again, there's a grounding strap there. There's another, yeah, another wiring strap. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So there's some hiding, and yeah, there's a wiring strap there. That removes it. All right. So we can get this one off. Yeah, it's definitely starting to dry out because it's taking a shape like that, but we may be able to get some measurements off these and just pull them down a little bit. Same for that main drive belt, although it's snapped, it's in one piece. That's a lot of screws to take out of there. I'm just going to temporarily remove this to get to the counter belt because I'm doing some measurements with the belt. So I'm just going to put these two, where that went, down there. Just going to put these two screws aside for a second to see if these two just pull this whole cover off. Yeah, they do. Lovely. Okay. So that lets me get to the counter belt. Just going to go through my stash of belts and see if I've got something that is a better fit to measure it. So I've just realised there's actually a very tiny pulley that holds the belt up just so it doesn't catch on the little edge of the metal there, which is cool. This belt's a little bit tight, I would say, for a counter. Let's see if I've got something fractionally bigger. I could just use one of these for the counters, but I'm trying to get a measurement really because I'd like to order one, and then I can get in touch with my usual supplier to possibly put kit together for anyone else to use. So that's what I'm trying to figure out here. We need something a little bit bigger than that. I've been cleaning this out as best as I can because a lot of this is greased. Of course, I can't go around just sort of with alcohol or anything, just sort of clean all the metalwork up. But there was a lot of dust and fluff in this, and I've just been trying to brush or pick out as much of that debris as I can. And also, the old belts seem to be degrading in a way that they were kind of shedding on this paper here. I don't know if you can see this sort of lots of little black flecks, and that was all sort of scattered around inside the front and back of the deck and all in the gears and everything. So I've been using this little tiny brush, which I think is a stylus brush that came out of one of those hi-fi cleaning kit cheap things, and just some degreaser around just some of the wheels themselves, just to get a lot of the crap off. And then those switches, I misspoke earlier when I said there's leaf switches underneath the keys. They're not really underneath the keys, they're more scattered around various sort of linkages. So there are two in the front half and three on the back half, and then the plate that goes on, there are three on that. And most of those, you can see I had to bend the lint-free sticks to get in there. Most of those were sort of this sort of colour. They were awful. Got them here somewhere. Yeah, there we go. That's one of the ones out of the switches. The switches were really dirty. They weren't that bad. I can't remember what I was cleaning with that, but yeah, they weren't good. So I did take the flywheel out, and just nearly lost that thrust washer. I don't want that. I did take the flywheel out to try and get myself a bit more access, and when the flywheel was in, I was activating the functions and turning the flywheel by hand, and everything was sort of coming up and down. I'm still not certain which switch is actually the trigger switch, because there's a trigger switch that when you press one of the function buttons, it should knock that switch on to activate the motor to turn the big gear on the back that lifts the either lifts the head block if it's in play or record, or activates the fast forward or rewind linkages, but it's all on that cam gear. And when that's gone all the way around, the head block raises, the brakes, well, not the head block, there's a section here that's got brakes on that raises, and that bumps this switch just under there where my thumb is. It's a bit awkward to see because this plastic assembly is in the way. Oh, there we go, get to that. Maybe a little bit easy. You can see there's a leaf switch just where my thumb is. That's the main motor switch, so it sort of passes from one switch to another. But I'm not sure, because I think this is the pause switch down here. Some of the switches just light an LED up, whereas a couple of them actually pass the motor current sort of from one switch to another. So yeah, I'm not certain which switch that is. I think that's the main motor switch, but I'm not certain which is the trigger. It might be one of the ones on the plate at the bottom, but either way, you know, it doesn't matter for now, they've all been cleaned. It's slightly awkward, this, in that I think I'm going to have to pretty much completely reassemble and replace this mechanism to make it function, to test it. I'm not going to be able to do too much, I don't think, in this sort of state, because I've got to connect everything back up and then see where the linkages contact the switches properly. I've got some belts. I'm hoping that they're going to be right sizes. Let's start, actually, because now that this has been cleaned, let's open the counterbelt one, because that's at the front, and if we're happy with that, we can get the front back on. Now, I also managed to get the counter freed up. I don't know if I mentioned, I only realised off camera the counter was seized. I actually used a little bit of GT85, just sort of drizzled a little bit in there. The plastic on these seems to be pretty good and the numbers are not rubbing off. There's a lot of counters that I've dealt with where the plastic goes all sort of brittle, and the paint that the numbers are done with, it just, you look at it, it just falls off. So I don't kind of blanket recommend that you just, you know, go hosing down counters with GT85 no matter what, but there's definitely some grease in that was making it stick. And I spent probably a good hour or so just dropping little bits in, kind of working the wheels back and forth and making sure that the reset, although it's a bit slow, it finally does work and it moves backwards and forwards freely. So when we get this running, we'll just have to run it on fast forward and rewind a few times to get that fully sort of cycled, but it seems okay. So I've got belts from my usual source, not a sponsor, Deck Tech on eBay. As I say, I hope, because I've sort of compared these with the existing remains of the belts, I hope these are going to be alright, and then I may get in touch with them and see if they fancy putting this together as a kit for this machine. So we've got a little pulley there to get over, and then around like that. There we go. Let's just release that brake. Well, that certainly feels fine for the counter belt, so we're going to win there. So we've got, what, a 55, is that? 55mm by 1mm square belt for the counter. Yeah, that looks straight. That feels just sort of slack enough. You don't want lots of tension in the counter belt. So I think we're happy there. Clean microfiber cloth as well, just over this tuner faceplate, because this is bumping close to it so often. I'm wary of scuffing it, and it even mentions that in the service manual. So wary of that. Wiring to get out of the way. Rust washer back on. Obviously clean the capstan before contacting it against the pinch roller. So I think next to try is the clutch belt here. Now weirdly it mentions in the service manual coating this with silicone grease, because it says you should do it for slip. I'm not going to do that at this stage. I'm not saying Sanyo were wrong, but that fills me with dread, to be honest. So that's going to be hopefully the 45mm by 1.5mm. These are quite thick. Spot on. So that's a 1.5mm by 45mm, and then a 1.5mm by 85mm, hopefully, will fit. That feels good to me. Perfect. This is what you have to be careful of, don't get wires caught in, in the function gear. Oh, something is stuck there now because the brakes are not down. So we're in stop position there, so our brakes should be down and the capstan should be in free to spin in the gap on the function gear. I wonder if it was just not doing anything before because it was stuck kind of mid-function. Alright, catch up. The tape deck's back in. Belts of course all done. I put the top panel back in for the tone and volume controls and tested it on headphones last night. The FM radio sounds amazing. That's working really well. Balance controls fully working. Bass, treble and volume, no fuss. The tape deck unfortunately still no go. I'll cut to the chase. I've tested all these switches and gone through everything, made sure they're all contacting. We appear to have, unfortunately, a dead motor. There is voltage on that motor, I can prove that if I get my meter in. One of the switches is currently closed at the moment, and annoyingly the service manual is a little bit different. This seems to have on the back of the tape deck where this, let me show actually, where this control board is. This board down here that's got these connectors on. According to the service manual, this has got 2 transistors on and an extra inductor coil, and they're not on this board. This seems to be a revised board. There's a little bit of difference at the top, and one of the connectors in the service manual, 2 of these are 3-pin, on this one of them's 4-pin. So this is a revised board, a simplified board. My service manual is a slightly different version, so it could be that the K version, which this is, might have a slightly simpler board. The LU version, which I think is the one I've got the service manual for, might be a little bit different. As far as I was aware, I think that was just regional differences, and it was mainly to do with which bands the radio would cover. So the K version like this has 2 shortwave bands. The LU would have had long wave and I think 1 shortwave band, something like that. So the LU would have been a 4-band. This is a 3-band with split shortwave band. So we've got medium wave, shortwave 1, shortwave 2 FM. I thought that was the only difference, but it's mainly it's perhaps just a issue of serial numbers where these are a little bit different. But if I put on the power and just flip it back the other way a second, as I say, we should have voltage across that motor. It makes one connection to the ground, and if I go to the red wire, see, we've got, it's awkward to get a connection on, but we've got 8 volts and change across that, and it's doing nothing. I've even been in and turned the speed adjustment pot inside here back and forth just to see if it would wake anything up. I've sprayed a tiny bit of contact cleaner inside it. There is one of these motors in Bulgaria on eBay for about 23 quid, which I think I'm probably going to have to buy. I'm going to take this motor out. I'm not sure if I can open this can. There's a solder joint on one side, and it may be that the collars on the rubber bushings for where it's mounted might pull out, then the can might open. I'm going to have a go at that. It's frustrating, I've got to take that belt off again. But yeah, it's really annoying, that is, because obviously a dead motor is not a common thing, and you'd expect that something much simpler like you know, a dirty contact on a switch or a capacitor or something would be the first thing to cause the problem, not the entire motor. So The deck is not completely screwed in. I think I've just got it fastened on one side. But I'm going to take the board off the back of here again so I can get to the motor. So I'm going to put them back in, number 4. This one's hanging on, there we go. And then we've got here a shield. Which is the flatter screw that comes out. So we put that in 4 as well, but that's the one with the flat head. Got to be careful of this tiny wire here coming off the ferrite rod for the medium wave and short wave. Take out this shield. Disconnect this wire, that would have helped us. Yeah, I think to get to that I'm going to have to take the tape transport back out again. That's annoying. Which screw did I put in? This one. The one with the spring. It's not the easiest to work on, this one, so they're going back in number 5. Despite that, I must say I love this mechanism. There's no rubber tyres. There's not a single rubber tyre. 3 bolts. All the rest is gears. All the gears are made out of a really good quality plastic. It's done in that very Sanyo way of having a really precise injection moulded base, which all the metal parts fasten to. I think I'm going to have to slacken off the wiring again. There we go. So we've got a white wire down here that's attached to the positive leg of the capacitor. That's that. And then the grounding wire, which is attached to the middle post. There we go. Got that on the bench power supply, and it's stone dead. It's not even drawing current now. Right, so there's 2 solder joints on this motor. I'm going to see if I can move those and get in it. There's a capacitor there that's just glued. I can break that glue bond. Oh, yes. Yeah. Alright, what we got there? Oh, okay. Some rubber. Piece of paper on the end. Okay. Tiny little circuit inside and a motor controller. I wonder if it's that has died. I'll tell you what, around the board there it looks blackened. I wonder if that controller's blown. And can I find one? I see 2 tabs, and it looks like if I desolder those 2 tabs I might be able to get that board off. LA5511. I bet it's blown. Sanyo DC motor speed controller. Found one in the USA. LA5511. Again in Bulgaria. Okay, so they're around. It's cheaper than an entire motor. I'm going to have a look to see if I can find any other of those, because I suspect that might be our issue. Let's see if I can remove the board. There's a little ground wire here as well that's soldered to the body. Soldered and bonded. Or tack welded, I'm not sure. Oh, it's the, I see, it's the leg of this capacitor. Oh, is that, I wonder if that's aluminium. Oh, actually, I suppose I can flip it sideways. I wonder what happens if we connect a low voltage directly to the pins of the motor there. It runs. Yeah, so the motor itself works. I don't know the voltage it actually runs at, so I'm going to write down to sounds a bit grumbly, might want a little bit of oil in its bearing. But the motor itself works, so yeah, the controller chip, that green one, has had it. I think the chip for the motor is coming tomorrow, so in the meantime I'm going to do a little bit of work on this front panel. Now, as illustrated by that, the top metal piece, as all the glue has failed, it's all come off, which I'm glad about actually, because when I first started working on this it was definitely loose on one side, but it seemed to be still attached to the other, and you don't want that, because if you try and kind of pull it or remove it, you're liable to bend it. So just sort of checking the join at the front here, it very quickly broke the join and it's come straight off, which I'm glad about. All of this is not perfect by far, it's got scratches and scrapes and scuffs and things in it, but it's not a bad example. I'm going to make it as best as it can be. I'm glad I can take that out of the way, because for one, it won't get damaged, and I can probably, as the final thing, re-glue that at a later point. So, as probably mentioned before, because this has got a lot of wiring and stuff along the front, and it's not too bad, I'm not going to completely strip this to dunk it in water, but these buttons along the front, I can see right inside them, they're kind of gross. There's 2 screws, 3 screws actually, on this LED panel here that will come loose. There's a couple of screws on this little plastic section here that I think hold these buttons in. So I think if I just pull those out of the way, that eject button actually as well, I'll be able to just get them off and just clean that out. So it looks like, I'm going to guess, those and those are the same size screws by the looks of it. These look a little bit different in the middle, so they look smaller. I realise as well now it's not so easy to get to my ice cube tray there that I use for the screws, so I'm just going to put them there a sec. But let's just see what we can remove. Then I'm going to take just the bigger speakers out, just to see if we can remove the grills and just give those a wash. So yeah, it's the LED part, and then looks like there's a plastic part underneath, and then yeah, the buttons come out individually. I'll have to check back on my footage what order they went in now, won't I? I don't want to flip it over again. But yeah, I'm going to take those out. I think I'll just, there's a lot of muck under there I can see. So we'll give that a swab out. Going to put them through the ultrasonic cleaner, why not? So let's do the lot. So actually in comparison they're very similar, but these are a little bit shorter. Take that off. Those 2 out. Yeah, I think actually they're mostly identical, it's just getting the right order. Metal bracket, that can be washed as well. This feels a bit greasy, that there might be, is there some grease inside that? Oh, it is. I have to bear that in mind. There's actually a bit of grease on this one, I think, because there's a bit of metal. Yeah, it looks like I can just take out the 3 for the speakers, which are slightly different on each side. That's got a smaller bracket on that side because it's got to make way for this board. Again, I'm not going to take that out. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 brackets that look identical, and then this one. This speaker's also got a magnetic shield over it as well, whereas this one hasn't. So this one, which way around that would be? That's probably closer to the motor, and then the motor as well inside it had also got this shield, which I think is like a moo metal shield probably, as it wraps around in several layers, so that's probably a magnetic shield. Yeah, that side would be, yeah, nearest the tape motor, so that might have something to do with it, to stop magnetic interference causing probably a beating sound when the tape motor's on. I'm not certain, but I think so. So actually, yeah, it looks like they're greased as well. So yeah, I'm going to clean them, and I think I will re-grease those. There is a wire retainer I notice around this one. I've got to note how the wiring sort of goes as well, because there are a couple of spots. I just wonder what that is. That it looks like there's some black glue has been used, and it looks like there's a big drip or something of it there. Just leave that where it is. Oh yeah, there's quite a bit of dust in there, but they don't look too discoloured. That's alright, that's all I wanted really. I just wanted to dust them. I don't think I need to ink them or anything. 42 years of grime. I think what I'll do is vacuum those, clean the dust caps as well. I want to get these out, give these a wash. Yeah, I changed my mind. I got the ink out and did this. This has been drying for about a couple of hours just while I've had dinner and a couple of things. While I washed the grill, you may be able to tell on there, especially now that that's been sort of re-inked, that the blue on that is really starting to show up now. If I hold it against something that is black like this cloth, hopefully you can see that colour really comes up nicely, and when the grill's over that in the right light and angle, it should look pretty good. There are some slight nicks in the paint on this grill, but I'm not going to worry too much about it, because again, I don't think they're kind of egregious enough that they're really going to show too much, and painting this is going to slow me down, so I'm going to have to find some aerosol the right colour, some enamel that would, you know, be a good match for it. I don't want to go down that road. I don't think it's necessary. I think just inking these just to make them darker just really sort of makes that blue pop. There are some marks on the chrome cap a little bit on this one. It was quite mucky, but now they've been cleaned up, you know, again, once they've been on the grill, they're just going to look quite a bit better. If you can hear noises behind me, I don't know if the lapel might pick it up. It's bonfire night at the minute, so you'll probably hear fireworks popping away in the background. But while I've got the video running, I just want to document getting this one out, because this has got the different clamps on it. So this clamp is smaller, so we'll get these out and compare them. Again, this bottom one has got some black glue on it from where the wires have been secured. So just for a comparison, yeah, that was that was well worth doing, wasn't it? Even with that over the top, it's just going to make it look way better, isn't it? So yeah, let's give this one again a vac up and a clean up, and then we'll do the ink, and then I'll leave them to dry overnight and pop them back in the morning. Dumbass moron alert. I put it down and sat on it. What a fucking idiot. If this leaves a mark, I'm just going to have to wear it. Yeah, well, it'll leave a crease in the middle. I've got it out best as I can, but it's going to have a massive great rash in the front now because I've buggered it up. Alright, catch up a few days later. Am I still mad about that piece at the top? Yes. But in the grand scheme of things that have gone off this week, I don't think it's the worst thing, is it? If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And let's leave it there. So, yeah, I'm still furious about that. If I'd have just put it up on a shelf and not sat on the bloody thing, then I wouldn't be in this position. But it's just going to have to be the way it is. I get really upset about screwing up stuff like that, I'm afraid. It's just kind of in my nature, and I've got oodles of patience with other people. I have to have that as part of my work that I do, but with myself I have absolutely none at all. And do I feel like I should still have a head injury for what I did? Yes, it pisses me off that much. To anyone else it will just seem like a massive paddy that I'm having, but things like that I don't like screwing up when they could have been so easily avoided. Anyway, shut up about it. I've put all the buttons back in. This was a bit easier than I thought it was going to be, because actually with these two buttons being wider, the little channels that they sit in are also wider, so from the back you can kind of see that there should be two wider buttons there, and the rest are the little more squarer button, if you like. So yeah, I took all these out just to get all that fluff and crap from underneath, put a little bit of Monaco grease just in the little channel that it sits in, fitted this all back together. The speakers got inked. I did do the tweeters as well. I took the tweeters out, cleaned the dust caps, and did put a bit of ink on them as well, just because in comparison to the woofers that I'd done, the dust caps, you could tell they were a bit mucky. Not quite so much the black cone on them, but I thought I'd do it anyway. That's really sort of in the right light brought that kind of pale blue out on the grills. That looks really nice now. Again, this is not, I've still obviously got to glue this down. This is not a perfect unit. It wasn't when it came to me. It's got scrapes and knocks. It's got a little chip in the tuner window there, and a little one there. I have given this a polish with the plastic polish that I used, the Maguire's, that's got a little bit of fogging out of it, and it's going to look a bit better. As I say, it's not a perfect unit. It was never going to be. Still, that irritates me, as I keep going on about. God, I wanted to cave my own head in that night. But as we've said, in the grand scheme of things, you know, I think it's best to just get on with it and get it finished. These little bits underneath that I thought were glue, well, there is some glue there, but of course it's the feet, it's the rubber feet at the bottom, so it's a little tab that the feet are probably pulled through, glued in place and then cut off there perhaps, or it's just part of the manufacturing process. But that's what they're from. So this is all being reassembled, and wires are catching on that cloth there. I've got the chip for the motor, so I'm going to move on to that next. And then I think probably the last thing I'll do is try and sort of glue all of this back down as best as I can before it gets reassembled. Put that aside and don't sit on it. Let's have a look at this motor. So yeah, I've got the chip. So I've got this from Little Diode on eBay, not a sponsor, but they're a pretty good source of, in the UK at least, of obsolete chips. So I've had a few bits from these in the past. Not the cheapest, as obsolete stuff never is, but at least they're a pretty reliable source of stuff. Now, interesting, this is not a green one like the original was. It's black, but as long as it works, that doesn't matter. It's definitely a 5511. Now we've got a 9 on there, so I wonder if that's a 90s issue, which is why it might be black. Also, I noticed on the rubber bumper that goes over the board, you can see in there, even some of that sort of melted a bit, so it must have been getting absolutely roasty toasty. I need to bend the legs backwards on it. So the next thing will be to get this back onto the motor contacts. And I need to resolder the contacts where they were. Shit, I've done that wrong, haven't I? Not put the paper in. So we have to put the sheet back in there for the insulation. Good grief. And get this back into place. It's a good job I didn't plug it in. See if we can tack this into position. Let's hook up bench power supply at a low voltage. Let's just say 6 volts. Is this motor going to work? Yes! Does the speed adjustment work? It does. Wonderful. Is there much heat from that chip? A little bit, because it's a regulator. Yeah, just the tiniest bit of heat there, just warmth as you'd expect, but it's not baking hot. Phew, okay. So I need to get that fully reassembled, and then we'll try it in the machine. Actually not really feeling any heat from that now. Obviously I've just soldered it, but there's just the tiniest bit of warmth. And it's drawing 20 milliamps. No, that's absolutely fine. I wonder if someone tried to adjust the speed with a metal screwdriver and shorted against the case, because this case is grounded, and this potentiometer on the back, on the front face of it, has got the input voltage, I believe, or it'll have a control voltage somewhere, won't it? No, that's not warm at all, really. So, yeah, who knows what happened to that, but it seems fine now. I think, actually, I'm not going to rush to put it in there. I think I'm going to tip it up. When it's that way, I can hear that bearing grumbling a little bit, so I think I might just, I can't obviously get to the back bearing because I can't undo this motor because it's stamped together. But I'm going to try a tiny drop of oil under the front bearing and just see if it will alleviate it a little bit. That already sounds better. Capacitor with the wires being bent the way they are, just looking around the bottom of it. I think I might change this for a fresh one. I don't think there's really anything wrong with it, but just sort of looking around there, there's the way it's sort of pulling on the rubber bung at the bottom. It's probably worth refreshing that. See if I can get this resoldered. Alright, we're loosely back together. Took a couple of attempts to get this motor sort of the right way. I've got power. If I press stop, oh, that's not stop, I think that's stop, that's fast forward. It's working. Yes. Because pressing stop, yeah, should cycle the function gear around. So that's play. Yeah. That's Q when it's playing, of course. Yep, so that's working. So that is review. Yeah, that also stopped. Also stop works. And that's play. So that's pause. Yeah. That's stop, isn't it? That's going. Oh, fantastic. Let's see if it will pull a tape, just a scrap tape, the one I always use. Yeah, seems to be okay. It's responsive. That seems to be going. Yes! It's very slow. Speed needs sorted out. Let's see if I can find a ceramic driver and just roughly bring that up to speed where I know it should be. There's copyrighted stuff on this tape, so I can't take a direct sound sample off this one, but just having roughly lined up the motor with the ceramic driver, it's sounding really good. I've done no head alignment, no proper speed check or anything yet, but the VU meter's working. It's not even screwed in properly. There is a bit of a grounding noise somewhere, which again, half of it's hanging out. That'll probably clear up when it's properly wired back together and all our grounding points are properly put back in, including the one on the back, obviously. The high frequency response is really good. To say that's playing a 1987 TDKD just with a quick CD transfer I did just to test some stuff, it's sounding really well, so I'll give you a flavour of that at the end. But so I've done no head alignment, all I've done is clean it and clean all those switches, and it all seems fully functional. Obviously we've not tried recording yet, but won't be trying that until I've completely put it all back together. But yeah, that's working dead well. I've been running the mechanism a bit, running a few tapes through this. As mentioned earlier, I've arbitrarily set the speed just to what sounded right to me. Later on I will do the proper calibration to the 3000 Hz tape I've got, but I've got to say, even with a pinch roller that's quite hard, probably could do with replacing if I was serious about it, and after some Molykote grease on a couple of the gears for fast forward at the top here, which calmed down some rattle in those gears, making sure the counter is okay, the reset is starting to speed up a little bit now that I've exercised it quite a bit. Even through headphones at this early stage, I think I've got to say this is probably the best sounding cassette deck in a boombox I've experienced so far. The response off that head is really good. I think the noise that I'm getting, the motor noise, if I put my hand near the back where the motor and the preamps are, it increases. I think it's because on that back panel there's a shield which connects to a ground point, so I think once that shield is in place that will go away. There is some background noise, there's no Dolby or anything on this, so there is background hum and noise, as on these fairly simple circuits there always is. The loudness curve on the volume at the lower half where it boosts the bass is really strong. It's almost too strong, but I think once you've got that on the speakers, it will work really well, because when you turn it above halfway you can really hear that mid-range really jump out. But for sort of quiet listening, of course you can adjust the bass and treble. I realised all this time as well, until I fiddled with the switches, I was playing a Type 1 tape with Type 2 EQ and it still sounded really good, but it did shift the playback EQ when I put the switch in the right position. But yeah, I've just been running this and exercising it. I can't really detect any wow and flutter. It seems a really stable, really good quality deck. When you fast forward or rewind and then stop the tape, it doesn't like spill any tape or anything. Those breaks are really effective. It's really responsive. It's a Sanyo, right? They're always brilliant. You get the good quality Sanyo stuff of this era, it's always fantastic. I'm super pleased that I've been able to get in that motor and do that. So I'm just going to keep going with watching my old footage back to see where half of these wire taps and wire retainers rather and bits and pieces went. See if we can keep getting this back together. The only capacitor that I've changed was that one on the motor, and only because looking where the legs were bent, it did look a little bit green, and if it's been subjected to a short circuit, because something definitely had in that motor, I thought, yeah, let's get rid of it. So I did silicon the new one onto the side of the motor. The motor's not getting hot at all. Can't really detect anything more than a normal amount of the tiniest bit of warmth. So I think whatever caused that, as mentioned earlier, to avalanche was probably some sort of short circuit, because it doesn't really generate anything like that amount of heat in normal usage. I've been fast forwarding and rewinding this loads to get that grease in and exercise this counter, and it's really impressive. I can see that this was in its day a really nice unit. I bet the Japanese one with a Dolby on it with a good quality recorded tape would have been a really good performer. Even the sound of the radio that a few days ago I was testing when I first fixed this panel with the pots on, sounded, even with weak reception that I get in this room, sounded really good. Really impressed with this. The top isn't glued on yet. I've just put that in place for the moment just to make sure it all lines up okay. Board has been screwed back in. I've missed one wire retainer, and it's one where on the back of the deck, just on the edge of this board, where there were two of them. I've just got one. I wonder why I'm finding that I was having to get a lot of wires around one. I should have gone back a bit more carefully and realised that there's supposed to be two of them. It's not going to cause a problem because I've sorted it out with one. It's fine. Yeah, it's slightly annoying, but it's not. I'm not going to pull all the deck back out just to try and get that one back onto that screw. There's nothing in the way. It's fine for now. Again, if this wasn't mine, I will go in and do that, but this is just, you know, one of mine, and it's fine. So just that one that got missed. But yeah, I've been going back through the footage, of course, to see what went where. I'm noticing that there is quite a warp in this board, just from its age really, but the only one bad solder joint that I found actually was, I think it's this one. This wire retainer was flopping about, and it had broken free from the little ground point that it's soldered to, and it was a bit of a devil to get back on actually. But that was the only one. Certainly not seeing any bad solder joints around the main board. A couple on the tone board weren't great, but they tidied up okay. When you put in the chassis in, I didn't find the chassis too bad actually to get back in. It's easier to get it in, I think, than get it out. But don't forget to put the fine tuning knob and the 4 switch tops on before you put the chassis in, because I forgot each one of those twice, so I had to take the chassis out again twice, and yeah, get that back in with those on. Obviously the knobs on top, this one and the tuning knob, go on once this has been done after the fact, but this is going to be glued on first. So I've got this panel, and I don't remember if I took these off or if it came without them, and I have to look back at the eBay listing when I bought it, but one of these has got one of the washers in and one hasn't, and the antennas that I've got, as is always the case, this bit at the bottom is a lot thinner than they used to be, so I'm going to swap the top section of the antenna onto this, but with the middle bit being a little bit thinner than the old ones were. I think I'm going to need to find another washer, because I think these have got one in. We'll open one and find out. Oh, wait a minute, there's 3. Really? Oh, okay. We'll experiment with this then. I think I might have sussed a way of doing it. Got some steel washers. with a combo of those and work out a mixture of the little brass ones. I think that's the original. I think we'll be able to match these up. That worked out alright, better than I expected. I didn't realise that there were actually 3 copper washers inside those new antennas, so I was able to just use one in each one and then a steel washer, just take up most of the slack and just tighten down. They're fine. The only thing I don't like is because, again, these are sort of cheap generic modern antennas. When they are down, they're really rattly. I don't like that much, but when they're up, they'll be fine. I think they're about the right size. They fit the little clips there just about right. So as I said, that one's broken unfortunately, but not a big deal. Just as long as they sort of sit right and proportional, I'm happy enough. So yeah, that went quite well. So I think I'm going to remove this scrappy bit of adhesive tape and replace that with a new piece of capstan tape when these get secured in, as they were. But yeah, I've got all the wire dress to do around the edges and on the tuner here as well, so I need to again refer back to my footage, just make sure that's right, and then glue down this top panel. Alright, outside to do the band sweep. Preemptive apologies if there are noises in the background. There's a lot of tree work being done by me, so there's chainsaws and all sorts in the background, but to get the best reception I thought we'd try this outside, so let's do a little band sweep on the FM.
Melvin's gone vegan, so she gave me a big piece of roquefort.
Don't put it in the fridge. It must be cool, not cold.
Don't worry, it's still in the boot.
You have reached halfway through that.
So that's Radio 1 because it's so strongly modulated. There's no AFC switch on this, but I wonder if it's actually built in, because it really does seem to lock a station from quite far away if it's just on the edge. And even that isn't lighting up the tuning indicator, so it's a weaker station, but it's still doing a good job of pulling it in.
I love to dip cream crackers with butter into my tea, says Shelley in Winkerbank.
Oh, Shelley.
Good for Shelley.
Promise terms, head to capitalfm.com.
Okay, elves, Santa's all set. Is the sleigh good to go? I don't understand. Why do I stress the man? And hear me when I say softly.
Alright, let's go over the positives and negatives of this. Positives first. It's got 2 new antennas, it's got a full set of belts, it's had its balance pot surgically fixed, it's had its counter surgically fixed, it's had its motor surgically fixed. It was in a terrible state when it came to me, now it's much better. In doing those belts, the sizes of them have been documented. I couldn't find them documented anywhere else. If not mentioned earlier, the only source I found was in America before I started this, and the seller wanted $42 for a set without even mentioning what the set was. So at least now that's documented. Now a UK company is supplying the belts, or has those sizes available. You can buy them from them or anywhere else if you want to. They're not a sponsor, but at least now they're available because that's been documented. We found this cool bus ticket inside, and the date on this, July the 8th, for privacy reasons I won't go into, but that's a significant date in my family. So that's just a cool coincidence. This ticket, Southern Vectis, until I believe very recently, was a bus service on the Isle of Wight. I found out, and the price there would have been £1.5. So I think this is probably from the early 90s at the latest, because definitely by the mid 90s, the sort of longer form bus ticket, which is usually white, not cream, and usually has the year on it as well, came into circulation. So these were used, this sort of style was used, I believe, right from the 50s, right up until probably late 80s, early 90s. How on earth that got in there, kind of buried right down in there, I don't know, because it's not like it was in the battery compartment. It was really pushed down in there. That's going to stay with it. I'll keep this in the battery compartment when I've done with the batteries, because that's just a quirky bit of historical context to stay with the machine. That one wire retainer I will keep with it as well. Now, the negatives. The obvious one, I damaged the front panel. I'm still upset about it, yes. The other one is the tape deck has got a minor issue, which I think in future I'm going to come back to. I made a slight mention of the pinch roller. I think there's a combination of a worn pinch roller, which is quite hard, and it might have a slightly barreled shape to it. And I think there might be a little too much take-up tension. When a tape is right at the beginning, a couple of times with my scrapper tapes, the tape is skewed off the pinch roller and it's chewed up a tape. It makes a slight sort of rattling sound when it's doing that. I think that there might be a little too much tension on take-up, and the take-up is pulling on the tape too hard when it's got an empty spool, and that on the sort of dried out plasticky pinch roller is causing the tape to skew kind of backwards towards the back of the machine. In the service manual it makes quite an amusing recommendation that you get an old tape, cut the front off of one of the sides of the tape, the head side, and use it as a visual guide, which is a really great idea. At some point I may look and see how the tape is riding over the pinch roller. I believe the head guides are fine, but yeah, to do that pinch roller, the whole assembly would have to come out. So I'd have to take the chassis back out. I don't think I'd have to take the deck out, just the chassis, and I can get from the front. So I need to size up at some point, ideally a replacement pinch roller for this. Most that I can find have the plastic bearing, not the brass one, which is a shame, but if I do find a brass one of the right size, I'll document that in future. The take-up torque issue, again, according to the service manual, it basically says just change the clutch assembly. Now, I've read a little bit about the felt in clutch assemblies. After a number of years, in this case almost 43 years to this day, the pile of the felt under the pressure can get compressed, and so you've got, you think of it like the pile of a carpet, you've got air trapped in between the fibres, but if you compress the fibres, you've got less air and more fibres in terms of the volume and the surface area. So if you're using that to form the surface of a clutch against a plastic plate, the flatter that pile gets, the more of the fibres are pressing against it, so you've got more grip. I'd like to check this with a torque measurement tape, a cassette torque gauge. I can't find one of them for less than 80 quid. They're very expensive. I probably will invest in one of those at some point because it would be useful to have, but they're not a cheap thing. There are some people that say, oh, just make one with a biro spring and an old cassette, but I don't understand how you can really calibrate that, or what it can really mean. It can only show you that there's some torque there, but you can tell that by your finger and thumb. Really, the point of having a torque gauge is to quantify it. So the service manual recommends between 30 and 60 grams, I think it is, of gram centimeters of torque. So it could be that this is a little on the high side, in which case, again, in future, the deck might actually come out and I might get that clutch mechanism apart and probably resurface or replace the felt inside it. This is not going to be a serious regular cassette player. I'll just kind of make a note not to run the start of a tape on it. I just like to make them work. I don't use them all the time, and if I do, it's probably a bit more for the radio, or use them on occasion. In future, I would like to have a better display of this, but it doesn't stop me doing it now. One minor negative is every chrome surface on it shows fingerprints like crazy. If I do go back in it as well, I think I will replace that wire retainer as mentioned earlier. Yeah, so I think again, despite this, it was, and you know, despite the overall condition, the scratches, a bit of a scratch appeared on the eject key at some point, which I'm not too happy about. There's paint dings. There's actually a little bit of paint under there missing. I think from the factory, it's like the overspray didn't quite reach. Yeah, it's knocked about. It's got this triangle on the front where the original sticker was been. I'm not too bothered about that. I don't think at this point I'm going to get a sticker made, but I will, as mentioned earlier, share my artwork that I made if anybody wants to get one recreated. I did have a reproduction sticker done on that Sony that I've featured in an earlier video, that big Sony mono CF270, I think it was, behind me. And because that was kind of a standard CMYK print, the quality of the sticker wasn't that great, to be honest. I mean, it cost me a £5 for an entire sheet of them, so just from far away it definitely looks better than it would without it, but I think for this I'd want a better quality print. So that's something at this point I'll come to down the line. But despite that, I'm happy I've done it. Really happy with the performance and the sound of this. Again, just as a radio, it's just got a really sort of warm, clean, pleasant sound. Really just sounds nice in the room. I can absolutely understand, there's a comment on one of the forums somewhere that someone called this the king of minis, and Sanyo in general the king of minis and the mini boomboxes. I can absolutely stand by that. I mean, this at the side of putting these two together, the 7700 that I did here and big 7950. So this is from 1979, this is from 1982. I believe they were sold, I believe, around about the same point, so they were featured together. I've seen some advertisements that were from airports actually, and some international ones that showed both of these for sale in the same ads. It's really interesting, the style of these. I always thought that the influence on these was purely 1950s cars, and I think that was probably a really big part of it. Maybe a little bit later on to sort of 83 to 85 sort of time, but I think these sort of late 70s to early 80s ones make a really interesting departure from the sort of lumpy, enormous, heavy tactical style that was popular in the sort of mid 70s, which some people love. I'm not super fond of it, but I think there was definitely a shift and an attempt to make a shift, definitely very deliberate, from that to I'd call it kind of a jet set style. If you look at the kind of market that they were marketed to, I think someone sort of come along and said, can we make these a little more compact, and can we take influence from things like Cartier watches, you know, that kind of luxury where the rounded chrome, the kind of geometry of the details and everything, the touch and feel of everything started to improve, clear plastics, big tape windows and that sort of thing. Really started to tighten up around that very sort of late 70s to early 80s time. A really sort of nice piece of design, definitely. I think that, you know, when I've got somewhere proper to display these, they're just kind of around the room at the minute, then it would be really cool. So I hope that was of some use and some help. I know that's going to be a really long video. There was hours and hours and hours of footage shot of this one, and I don't think it was one of my best videos, to be honest. I think there was just a bit too much wide shot and waffle, but it's kind of the way I had to do it. Normally I will kind of shoot a bit and stop, and shoot another bit and stop, and a lot of this was just having to leave a camera running while I was figuring something out and then really edit it down. So the edit on this one is a bit of a bear. But if you've got through this all the way, thank you very much. If that's been of any use to anyone with one of these and you've sat right through it, thank you. If you've got any questions or comments or anything, drop them below. I will put the belt sizes and a link to where I got the belts. Again, not a sponsor, you can get them wherever you want, but if that's helpful to you, go there. I'll put all that in the description. I think that's all I want to say on this for now, so thank you very much for watching.